Hi there, welcome to a 5-minute feature. This one is going to be an instance list using WQL. Let's go ahead and get smaller and jump into it. So what we have here is an instance list that can pull data in when it loads the page, as well as able to search on it. So if I want to search on this, it can actually search that data set. So how do I do this? We need 3 different things. We need 2 different endpoints. One endpoint being our endpoint that's going to pull all that data in. The other endpoint is going to be able to search on that data. And the last piece is going to be the instance list itself. So let's go ahead and dissect these a little bit. First off, the endpoint that is going to be pulling everything in. Base URL type, I have it labeled as Workday WQL. In my AMD, it is the API endpoint as well as the WQL endpoint. This fantastic API gateway endpoint is a wonderful variable that can make your life quite easy. All right, so next we are going to put in data as our URL type, and then we are using a separate component so we don't have to build out the URL within our PMD. My WQL query component looks like this. It is very simple. It has a select statement that is pulling the supervisory org and name from the supervisory organization's data source. All right, so now that I have a handy endpoint that's pulling my supervisory organizations, I now need a supervisory organization's search endpoint. So, very similar to the one up top, but it is deferred. It is a deferred true. And then I also have my URL that I am building here that has my select statement as well as my where clause that is searching on my instance list query, which is a variable that comes from my instance list. So anytime I put any kind of text into this instance list, it is going to be saved to my instance list query variable that I can use to build my URL. So now that I have my URL being generated, I can then use this endpoint in my instance list. So now down in my instance list, it is a multi-select, so I can select multiple items from this list. It is labeled select orgs. It has an ID of organization subordinate list and has the values from my initial endpoint. Next is the search endpoint. The search endpoint is going to be that endpoint that is using the instance list query variable to pull that data when I search. The search results values is going to be those values that come back from that endpoint. And then the ID key and display key are what the instance list uses to display the data that comes back from the endpoint that I searched on. So once I search on this, I actually need to use the dot notation that is coming back from my search endpoint. I said search a lot, but let's just take a look at what that endpoint brings back and how I need to actually use that data to then use my display key and ID key. So when I use that search, that select supervisory organization and name from supervising organizations, where name contains, so I don't have to have a very specific superorg, I can, do a fuzzy search on this, and then when it comes back, these are my results. So I'm going to pull that name from the root, and then I have my full object here of supervisory organization that I want to pull the ID from. So I need to do supervisory organization ID, and that's where you see my supervisory organization ID going into the ID key, and then the display key is that name. That's where those match up. And then once all those pieces are there and plugged in together, I have a fully functioning instance list that I am able to search on. So I can again search for human, and it pulls back human resources. I can search for account, and it can find accounts, operational, payable, receivable, and accounting. Wonderful. I can now search on my data set, I can pull my data set, and I can select multiple things from my data set. That has been a feature in 5 minutes. Thanks, and see you guys at the next one.